Well, talk about a life change. Boy, after infantry basic and jump school, being assigned as a clerk typist at Fort Benning in the infantry school, almost unbelievable change. Of course, I think I was a little disappointed. I don't know what I expected, but I certainly had never expected to be an office worker, be a clerk typist. But it was almost unbelievable. You were almost a civilian. Not hassled in the barracks area, not hassled in the company area where you slept. Go to an office and work. Turns out that major was actually a colonel. I'd forgotten that, but my wife pointed out that he'd made colonel either just before I reported or right after. But he was a kindly man, and he was in charge of that total school. Didn't see him very often, but he did drop through other work areas occasionally, and you were aware that he was aware of you, and he was aware of whether or not he thought you were doing a good job. Of course, if you weren't doing a good job in the eyes of the sergeant, you wouldn't be around there very long. But after I had reported in to the colonel, or major, whatever he was at that time, and he welcomed me and then turned me back over to the sergeant. The sergeant took me back over to the room that I would end up being in, doing the work for months, and took me to a desk with a typewriter, brought some work over and said, "Type this." So I typed it, and he'd pick it up and look at it. And I don't know, 2, maybe 3 days, that's all you did. Was he exposed you to the different kinds of letters and the different kind of enclosures that you'd be stuffing in with letters in the big old envelopes to mail out to these officers that were doing the correspondence courses. Evidently my work was all right, because I don't know, that second or third day was the last of the training period, and you started doing the real letters and sending out the real stuff to these officers all across the United States. So I was now part of the airborne chairborne. It was said that it was kind of a joke to call us airborne, but we continued to be jumpers. Got our jump pay. You had to make a jump. I can't remember whether it was ever 90 days or just what it was, but you couldn't draw the jump pay if you weren't jumping. So even though you were an office worker, they scheduled you at the appropriate times to keep your jump status active. One of the interesting things about that workforce was that there were 3 or 4 of us clerk typists there in that one room, and I suppose there were other rooms that had other groups of typists. Don't know. But I can tell you that there was a civilian girl in there. She wasn't very old, probably a little older than I was, but a pretty nice looking, always well dressed young lady. I expect was somebody's sweetie, or maybe even somebody's wife, although I think she was single. But she certainly, there was nothing flirtatious with her, with any of us guys who were working in there, and she had, I think, been there longer. If you had any real questions of what you ought to be doing, and the sergeant wasn't around, she had the answer, and she didn't mind giving the answer, but there was no chit-chatting. No. Well, life couldn't have changed much more. There was a time or two when I pulled guard duty, and I think that again was just to kind of keep you aware you are a soldier. You're not just an office worker. I don't remember if we were really guarding anything, but they had you an assignment, and you had a sergeant checked on whether or not you were staying alert and doing your job on guard duty. Don't remember ever having any excitement as a guard. But, you got into a routine. And we had a traditional day room, and you didn't have to stand in line. You indicated, I want to play, and I don't know, there might even been a board there where you checked in sometimes. But you could read a book, you could listen to the radio, visit with people, When it was your turn to play ping pong, I shot a few games of pool there too, but mostly ping pong. And I made some friends. And I don't remember, I can see in my mind one little guy, but I can't remember his name. And some others, but I didn't get into any group of drinkers or anything that needed a designated dragger. Life was much more sane. But the man I met and liked and enjoyed the most was Jim Dixon from one of the suburbs of Chicago. And there'll be more about him in a later video.